All right, we're rolling.
Okay. Please state your name clearly.
My name is Benjamin F for Felice di Liscia.
And your family's Rhodes name was from your mother's side?
My mother's name was Luna, in Italian Eleonora, Avzaradel e di Liscia.
And di Liscia.
My father was Italian. He came to Rhodes with Italian military. He was involved in the education department or propaganda department, I don't know what they called it. And he was teaching native people from Rhodes, Italian, those who were interested in learning. My mother was with a group of Jewish girls who were interested in learning Italian. So that's how my mother met my father, and they fell in love. My father converted to Judaism in order to marry my mother. And that's about the extent of the story.
And how did your parents survive the roundup?
Because my father was Italian, we were very fortunate not to be included in the, I suppose a mixed marriage was not like being completely Jewish, you see. So they didn't touch. There were several families. I know personally of one because I was friends with the boy of that house, that also were in the same situation as we were. An Italian father, Jewish mother, and Jewish children.
Jewish children. And the so when the roundups happened,
we were not involved. We were not, because we were considered Italian.
and protected.
And protected. One important point. In 1938, when the racist laws were introduced in Italy, my father converted back into Catholicism, and he had us, the children, converted Catholic. So I was, in effect, raised as a Catholic Italian child.
And on July 23rd, 1944, when the roundup began, you lived right here.
Next door, right. We happened to be, in the summer, we always went in the country. So we happened to be in a place very near what today is called Yalisos, but actually at that time was Trianda. So we were somewhere, actually there was a hotel right near where we lived for the summer that was called Miramar. So that's about the location, because we used to use that beach to go to the sea. So we were there when all these things happened. Now I like to bring out a point which you may not be aware of. On July 20th, 1944, there was the attempt to Hitler's life.
Right.
And that afternoon, we were having our siesta. People came around. The war is over, the war is over. Hitler is dead. And of course, it didn't happen. And you had to see the great disappointment.
So you were in Miramar,
In Miramar.
July 20th, 1944.
When that happened.
And
So did anybody else ever mention this incident of
No,
the
no.
attempt to Hitler's life?
And so that...
For one moment, we were free, you know, we were happy.
Right.
Only in the evening to have Radio Berlin deny that anything had happened, that it had failed, and that the Führer is in full command.
So the Jews were rounded up. You were in Miramar with your family. So when did you first hear about the roundups of the Jews?
There was, they distributed, I imagine, some posters all over the city that all Jewish males of a certain age, I think from as low as 12 till 67 or something like that, had to report on penalty of death if they didn't report to this place in the, which I believe it had been an Italian air base. So that's where they were put, in the open air. Well, okay, the weather, especially in the summer, is very mild here. But I don't think there was any place for them to sleep or anything. I didn't see it, so I cannot, verify directly. But
So your mother's family, Luna's family, is still in
Miramar.
Miramar. And the rest of the family that is here is rounded up.
Yes.
And so...
So the men first.
Right.
And then, like 2 days later or so, they called all the families, all of them. And they told them to bring food and bring all your valuables. They were very much interested in the valuables. And they were going to be in the palace of the Italian Air Force in downtown Rhodes.
Right.
So
your family learned about the roundups.
Right.
Did they call Miramar and say...
no, they because they were further down in the island.
Right.
Also
Oh, they
for
were.
the summer, they came. They trekked
Right.
on that road, the main road.
Right.
And they passed, and we were there waiting for them. And that was the last time I saw my aunt and her daughters, except for the one that survived, which I saw after the war, of course.
So what was the reaction of Luna to hear about that?
Look, the people going to their imprisonment were all very sad, all crying. My mother was crying, I was crying. So that was the situation. But we were safe.
Right. So tell me about your life here in Rhodes. You were born in Rhodes?
Yes.
And what year were you born?
1934.
And you grew up in the Jewish community.
Exactly.
And you knew about...
As I told my wife, I lived in paradise, but I didn't know it. Except that the Germans brought hell.
Now, you studied.
Yes, I went to the Italian school.
You went to the Italian school.
Yes.
And you spoke Greek.
Let's say Italian was the main language
Italian?
at the time. And I spoke Italian. My father was Italian.
Right.
I also spoke Ladino, which is what we spoke within the family.
And when you would get together in your family here in Rhodes, you would see your grandmother and grandfather, and
Well, I never knew my grandfather. He died long before I was born. But my grandmother played a very important role in my life. I mean, she was my, I was her baby. You know,
So tell me about your
I
grandmother.
was the youngest of that generation.
So tell me about your grandmother. What was her name?
Her name was Clara, but familiarly they would call her Caden.
And her family name?
Capuano.
She was a Capuano.
Capuano, and marriage Iav Zaradel.
And what did you learn from your grandmother?
Love.
Did she teach you songs?
Yeah, the little song that I...
Can you sing it for me? What was the little song that she would sing you?
don't.
No, you have to. This is very good for you to. You have a good singing voice. You know the words.
I don't have a good singing voice.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
I did.
Okay.
When I was young.
But you still remember the words.
Yes. E la scala vendi lana. You want me to sing it?
Yes.
E la scala vendi lana, e la pisan con romana. Il Dio non mi tomi l'alma.
Okay. And she would sing you this song?
Yeah.
And your mother would sing this song?
Yeah.
And did you sing this song to your children?
Yes.
Did they learn the words?
One only
Only one.
learned. The others,
So you have children,
yes.
and you've given them the opportunity to listen to this story.
I told you I'm a bad witness. So,
Your
I'm sorry.
go back to your grandfather and your grandmother.
My
They were
grandfather,
you didn't know, but he lived here, and he had come and lived
Yes,
from
my
another
father
place.
my grandfather originally was from Antalya, Turkey.
Okay.
So he came to Rhodes with his family in the early, I imagine, maybe in the late 1800s.
Hmm. And your mother's family was here for a very long time.
Well, that's my mother's family.
That's your
I'm
mother's family.
talking about.
And your
My father was an import.
so tell me about your
Well,
father's
he
family.
was with the Italian government. First, there was a military government in Rhodes, and that's where he first came here. But then he joined the civil administration. For a time, he had been secretary to the governor Mario Lago.
Mm.
He
Where in Italy was he from?
he was
His family.
from the town of Sant'Angelo del Pesco in Molise,
Okay.
the region of Molise, which is southeast of Rome,
Hmm.
above the spur of Italy. You know.
Have you visited?
No, I've never
You
visited.
never
that
visited
place,
the
no.
area, so you don't keep any relations with.
Yes, there were cousins of my father
Cousins
that
of-
I knew and met in Rome. Very fine people, you know. But I went to America in 1950, and then all contacts ceased.
What did you do for a living?
Well, I went into international trade.
Okay.
So I represented the export business of several American companies throughout the world.
And you live in the United States today.
Speaking of Connecticut, you know the Remington Arms Company?
Of course.
I was their international director.
Okay. So
Then I went into the dental field, and I was also the vice president international of Jelenko, J.F. Jelenko and Company, Dental Golds. You know, but before that I had been with the Care Manufacturing Company. They made dental materials like impression materials, like restorative. I forgot what they called them.
for teeth, yeah.
The paste that you apply to fix a hole or a cavity or even some damage.
Okay.
So you rebuild the missing part of the tooth and so on.
So I want to return you to
Yes.
1944.
Okay.
Okay. So you come back from your family vacation,
Yes.
and you're living down the way here.
Yes. We lived in effect in the old neighborhood. You see, before we were with my grandmothers. After
Right.
my grandmothers passed out, luckily,
Yeah.
it was early 1943.
Okay.
So luckily, because that was before.
Right.
So then we had an apartment a little further down. The names have changed, so don't ask
Right,
me
yeah, the
what's
names
the
of the
street
streets,
name.
yeah.
So
So you're here in 1944,
yeah,
and
in
tell
an
me-
really in an empty area.
an empty
There were
area.
very few. Yeah, but then Greeks came in and took the various places, and what they did, they were wrecking them.
So what happened with the synagogue, the Kal Shalom
The-
synagogue?
Which,
you were
which
you
was
were a
down the
witness.
street.
You were right. You were a witness to
Yeah,
this.
I know. It was right down the street from where we were. And they were demolishing it to take the wood out so that they can use it for firewood.
But this is not the the Nazis. This is
That
the Greeks.
the Greeks.
Greeks.
They were well. Look, they took the houses of the Jews, and they plundered them. That's what they. Unfortunately, what can I tell you? In Peveragno, for instance,
Right.
my brother was born in Peveragno because my father was a director over there of the agricultural colony. So, so for a time we lived, before I was born, we lived in Peveragno. And in the winter of 1944, well, we were starving. Even though we were lucky to be alive, to be, not to be deported, we didn't have it very pleasantly because we went through a period of starvation because the Germans took everything for themselves. And the people could, well, they died, period. Those that didn't have, fortunately my mother had some gold. And to give you an example, the equivalent of a double eagle, American double eagle, Turkish,
Right.
For one loaf of bread. That's the kind of thing we had. So if you didn't have money, you starved. And that's what happened. So what happened, there were the fruit trees in Peveragno, in this
Right.
agricultural, the peaches, they were famous, the peaches from Peveragno. But what did the Greeks do? Chop the wood of the trees that gave fruits so that they could use it for firewood. So that was it was a very primitive, that's what you expect from very primitive people. And that's what they were pushed
Right.
into being, you see.
So 1945, the war ends.
In May 1945. We were liberated on the 9th of May 1945.
And
And
what was the first thing that you heard about Luna's
Well,
sisters?
I'm sorry, what I had?
With your mother's family?
The first news were that somehow they survived, that as a matter of fact, really the wild rumors, like somewhere along the way to the train, on the way to Germany, the partisans liberated the train or something. But eventually, the British, they posted photographs of the camps with the fields full of corpses, which were very shocking. I was 11 years old then. And then we began to realize that many of the people didn't make it, And then we started hearing from the survivors, including my cousin, Clara, who was the next to the youngest daughter of my uncle, Bohor. And she wrote to us, she told us the horrors of the trip, and then when they arrived in Auschwitz, they saw the crematorium, the flames coming up from the crematorium. And that's where, she said, my parents were sent, It was the fire of the bodies of my parents, she's writing. So then we knew what happened because we knew who the survivors were. And out of 1,600 plus that were deported, only about 140 or so survived. And they were all the young people.
So Clara survived?
Yes, the only one of that family. There were 4, she's the only one who came back. The other family, the Charcon, there were 3 sisters and the younger brother. He must have been 14, 15, but he was strong, so he survived. And the 3 sisters, two of the 3 sisters survived. One, unfortunately, the youngest, also died in the camp. So we knew who they were, and so here we had 2 families, both of them of 4 people. In one, 3 survived, all young people, and the other one, 3 died, 1 only survived.
So what did Clara say to Luna I mean, I can't imagine. Here you're
Well,
11.
first of all, when my aunt, Bohora, was
Right.
passing by to go to the Aeronautica, she slipped something to my mother. It was the family gold, her family gold. The very first thing my mother did was to give Clara the gold that she had saved her. So
And after the war,
that was after the war.
Clara came back.
She never came to Rhodes.
She never came to Rhodes.
No. And we met in Italy. We went to Italy in November of 1946, and we met in Italy.
And you heard her story for the first time.
We met her as well as her cousins, our cousins, from the Charron family.
And
The
you heard
survivors.
the story for the first time.
Well, directly yes,
From
but
the
she had
survivors.
written us already.
She had.
Yes, so we knew what had happened, unfortunately.
And in 1946, you stayed living in Rhodes
Till November, then we were with the Italians.
right?
We were transported to Italy, and we were there for 3.5 years until our family,
Right.
came to America.
So my final question's about who have you told this story to?
Well, I don't usually tell this story. I mean, for the first time, one of my colleagues at work back in Michigan, the car manufacturing company, we were good friends all these years since we worked together in the 70s. And for the first time was just a few months ago that I told him the full story. I told him what had happened. Because we were talking about, there was a company that we did business with in Germany, and it happened to be the worst of what the Nazis are supposed to be. The owner of this company. It's a major German root canal instrument company, really a big one. But the owners are the mother,
Okay.
the matriarch.
Right.
And she really was a matriarch.
Right.
And so very nasty person. So we were talking about her. And then I told him at that point, listen, my family, they were exterminated and there were types like her.
Right.
Who were, the guards in the concentration camps. And so then I told him,
Right.
that's what had happened. And he was open-mouthed. Says, oh, what you gone through. But no, I don't tell this story.
Have you told your children?
Yes, they know the specific details that members of my family were deported and
Right.
killed.
Right.
They know and that we were lucky because my father was Italian. Let's face it, that was the reason. You see, I owe my father 2 lives. One when they conceived me with my mother and they gave me life. The second time when my father saved us because he was Italian. So.
Is there anything that you personally, you've been very successful in your life?
I reasonably so, I think.
Is there anything that you've learned from this experience that you'd like to say that you can share with people? I mean, obviously you don't tell the story, but the story has affected who you are.
Well, the story has affected me, yes, because I realized that you better live your life as cleanly as possible, as best as you can. Stay away from any potential problems instead of going into them, and hope for the best. I mean, the hatikva, the hope. Hope for the best.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. And you see, I didn't break down.
Yeah. I still would like you to sing the song. I still would like you to try to sing the song.
Yeah.
No, you.
Yes,
No, you.
You do it. Try to. Take
E la scala vendi lana, e la pisan con romana, Il Dio non mi tomi l'alma, si nu tomo a tu hermana. I have to translate that.
Right.
The Scala is the market. They are selling wool, and they weigh it with Romana is a kind of a scale, you know, a spring scale. They weigh it with a spring scale. May God never take my soul if I don't marry your sister. That's what it says.
That's a beautiful.
And
That's a
then
beautiful song.
The next
Verses. Yeah.
verse is La scala vende il sisco, il lupisan con pisico. Il Dio non mi tomi l'alma, si non ti do un pisico. So again, at the market, they are selling coal, and they weigh it with weights, you know. But God may not take my soul if I don't first give you a kiss. Okay?
And that you remember from your grandmother and your mother.
Yes, yes. That was the best time of my life.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm glad. And
I had two mothers.
Yeah. The two mothers were your
My
grandmother.
mother and my grandmother.
Well, you've done them a rich history that will be preserved now.
Thank you.